Well, good morning, everyone, and I hope this finds you well on this amazingly sunny day. The weather is such a cheer at these times as we're all figuring out our way forward, what has been happening, what we plan to do, and that is very much the theme of this latest Exeter Living Business Club. We'll be talking with a disparate panel in disparate sectors about how they have responded and how they think the prognosis will be for their sector and then for Exeter as a whole, as we all begin to blearily perhaps re-emerge into the daylight of what it is to trade once more. So my name is Greg Ingham of Media Clash. We publish Exeter Living. We run the Exeter Living Awards. We will also be running the Exeter Property Awards later on. And we're delighted to have this opportunity to host these tales from the lockdown, these candid insights across different areas, as I've said. These are times when we can all do with help of hearing other people's experiences and thoughts as we figure out what comes next. Ultimately, there is no monopoly on wisdom. We're all in this, in that respect, together. But of course, it affects our sectors very differently, as we will be hearing this morning. And at last, in this great pause, we've seen some signs of businesses coming back. And of course, many have continued throughout. But those companies are coming back a little bit groggily, perhaps re-emerging from hibernation, this forced period of ceasing. Much of retail started last Monday. And please look out for our Exeter Living Our Doors Are Open social media campaign. Check also our weekly Friday newsletters, where we seek to promote, help to promote businesses which are restarting, but also the good that people do. And it's been phenomenal how much good people and organisations have done in Exeter during this period. Just yesterday, of course, we heard the government's exact guidelines on social distancing for us all, which particularly affects hospitality, which obviously itself is vital for Exeter. 1 metre plus? Well, we'll figure out what that means for the individuals in a moment. Of course, as I say, many businesses haven't paused. Professional services particularly have largely continued, modified but continued, and we'll be holding various Exeter Living business surgeries on such as employment and HR, financial planning, digital marketing, legal services, and many more. If you have a professional service which would help others in these times, please do talk to us. The surgeries offer expert advice on key business topics for free, like all of our business clubs and so on. They will be on YouTube subsequently on our Exeter Living YouTube channel. Good luck and good wisdom to all Exeter businesses and organisations. Our next Exeter Living Business Club, by the way, is on July 15th. So, to our speakers today, we'll be hearing in this order from James Court of NatWest, Sally Basker of Exeter Science Park, and Patrick Cunningham of Exeter Phoenix. I'll run short interviews with each, and please send your questions through at the bottom. You'll see the Q&A button, and we'll try and cover as many of those as we can. So if I could ask James to come forward, and we will start with him. Morning, James.
Good morning, Greg. How are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm surviving. It's very interesting this far in working from home with young children. Let me tell you, but it's okay. It's okay. We're bumbling our way through it.
Well, I think you have the utter joy of 2 6-year-old twins, don't you? So that's been something of a personal challenge.
Or 6-year-old twin girls who are both full of sass and wit and enthusiasm at the moment, and desperate to go back to school, and obviously they can't at the moment until September.
And just a little reminder, this is being recorded, so just I'm sure they want to know what their daddy's been saying. Well, let's come on to there's the immediate, the personal about how you have been navigating lockdown. What's it been like for you? You're a gregarious, sociable, active person, and you've been constrained.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I found it okay at first. I'm used to working from home. We're very flexible these days at NatWest. We're able to work from home as well as be out and about in the business community, obviously with my role. I think it's really shining the focus on trying to keep a routine, good routine at home. And I think that's something that we strived at home to try and do with early morning walks and try and keep the well-being alive as much as anything, and work on that side of things. That's become very important, I think.
Yeah. And your title formally, job title, is Growth Enabler, which is a lovely job
Yeah.
title. But how has that worked in lockdown? For example, give us some idea of how many calls, how you've been interacting with clients, the great need for support that they have, and so on.
Yes. So when the crisis kicked off, I was actually seconded into a role to support our relationship management team in NatWest, who looks after existing SME customers. So that was a big jump for me in terms of, having to learn something quite new. But I got a real flavour at that time when the crisis kicked off about how much this was impacting SMEs right across the city. It was very distressing at first, taking call after call off, but it felt good as well to be able to support people in their time of need. And to be able to be there for them and talk to them and help them and use the tools at our disposal to make their lives easier.
And give us some idea of the sort of pre and post. What would be if there is such a thing, a sort of typical run rate of inquiries or calls or whatever, and then what did it spike to?
Yeah, our CEO Alison Rose was interviewed on the BBC at the peak of the crisis as we were going into it. And she used a number that we would across the bank would take typically sort of around 3,000 calls a day pre-crisis, and that went up to something around 26,000 calls a day. So it gives you an idea of the colossal need, impact it had on us, and how we had to respond. Huge.
And being candid, there's two things there. One, I'm sure some of that must have been, frankly, sheer desperation from some clients. But the other is you simply can't manage all of those inquiries, in the depth and time that people require. That must have been difficult prioritizing.
It was, and our priority very, very quickly became and has become now, and will continue to be during the crisis, to focus on serving our existing customers and to getting to those customers that need support and responding to them as quickly as we can. And that's something I'm involved with at the moment. I'm part of the team for taking calls on our national business line. I think I've done about 3 or 4 roles now during the crisis, processing loans, all kinds of things. And it's been that team spirit that has enabled us to pull together right across my team, which is South Western Wales, the Business Growth Enabler team, to just really plug in and be flexible. It felt like a war effort, Greg, very much so.
And has been full of a new person called Sybil. Tell us how that's been going.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, there was CBILS, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, and then obviously very quickly followed by BBLS, or the Bounce Back Loan Scheme, which we took in the first day when that was launched. Just probably more applications in one day than we've ever taken, certainly in my lifetime of the bank. We're all using this word at the moment, unprecedented, but it was an unprecedented amount of applications, and we had to respond to that and build a system for that within just a few days. And we're still taking calls daily. I'm part of the team that takes calls on that helpline, which is a pleasure to do, because you actually do feel like you can make an impact. But it's been colossal, the amount of customers that have wanted to take advantage of that scheme to support their business at this time.
I think there's a sort of a guiding principle that many companies have attempted to adopt in lockdown, which is by your actions today shall you be judged tomorrow. And those companies that do provide whatever their business service is, the level of support, thoughtfulness, and so on, will actually yield value subsequently. Is that essentially part of your approach?
Yeah, and it's been, to take the time to speak to customers and listen to what they've got to say and understand their stories, and to show real empathy. And from a personal point of view, it's about showing empathy and kindness to people. That person on the other end of the phone is going through a trauma, if you like. They're dealing with children at home. They're dealing with their business that's suffering or been impacted. And there's also those stories as well. I think of, one of our customers, he won't mind me using his name, Passion for Pie, a good local business. They won the National Pie Award just before lockdown for the best steak and ale pie. And how they've had to respond to this. Typically before lockdown, it was all about serving customers at local markets. Of course, that was shut. But then how they had to pivot, and that's a word we're all hearing a lot at the moment, how they've had to pivot and diversify and to do home deliveries. And I've been amazed to see, the entrepreneurial flair and spirit and survival techniques that businesses have used to respond to their customers.
I think we've there've been many instances of that, and that's a fine one of where people have pivoted. They've reformed their business in a different way. I want to come on to an element of that with you personally. That NatWest clearly is just a massive company. It's in a heavily regulated environment. I just wondered how much flexibility you had been able to have personally to respond to some of those specific needs of Exeter businesses.
Very good question. For me, I've got a strong network in Exeter, and any growth enabler like myself in different pockets of the country will have their own networks. But it's been trying to respond to those people within my network, and also the existing customers, that were flooding in through the call teams, and for us digitally at the time. And like I said, I go back to the empathy piece. It's about listening to each customer and trying to understand what their needs are and responding accordingly to those, and also counseling people through this time, because it's very, very easy when you're in this situation, for instance, when it comes to applying for a loan or something, of thinking of an amount off the top of your head that you feel you would need to get you through this time. And it's about just taking people through in conjunction with their accountant, about what do you really need, what's going to get you through, what's going to be the amount of money that's going to help you invest in a piece of kit or equipment, or enable you to change the business and become COVID secure, like a lot of businesses will be doing right now. And it's about reaching out to the local community through just text, email, personal phone calls. And for me, it's been about being there from that point of view, and taking the time to listen and then respond. And just to show, I don't want this to sound the same repetitive message, but just about showing genuine kindness to people. That for me is what's the role has enabled me to do.
Yeah, and you mentioned about awards. Of course, you were a very popular winner of one of our Exeter Living Awards on March the 12th. But by then, NatWest had deemed that none of its team could go to public events. We all understand why. How was that for you personally? Was it gutting? Was it sensible, or maybe just gutting again?
I understand. Obviously, I think through hindsight, we understand now the reasons why we weren't able to attend those kind of events. I think we're right on the cusp of what was going to happen behind the scenes. Of course, personally, for me, to not be in that room that night, I was gutted. I won't lie. I was following it on social media and had friends messaging me and emailing me, and somebody screamed down the phone, "You won! You won!" And I could hear the cheers and everything going on. No, it's immense pride. Personally, I never dreamed in a million years that I sat in the Living Awards 2-3 years ago and was in, just in the room looking around saying, wow. And then to win one was a pinch yourself moment. Yeah. So just a real honor for me.
You were a very popular choice, and we of course knew that you had won, and we were sad that you weren't there. But the cheer that went around the room that night was palpable, memorable, and brilliant. One thing I'm going to ask you live, I'm going to bounce you into this. I wonder if you'd like to be one of our judges for the Exeter Living Awards for next year.
I'd be an honour. Thank you for asking me. Yeah, wow.
Great.
Totally. Yes, I'd be an honour. Thank you.
We hadn't rehearsed that. It was just as well you said yes.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll be honest. And for me, winning a Living Award, I never dreamed I would, but it was just testament to how I've been able to grow NatWest Boost. Testament that you can achieve stuff. Even if you don't think that that's going to happen. And I'm part of being that business community and almost like intrapreneurial, if you like to use a phrase, within the organization. That's something that I've been able to do, is be an intrapreneurial spirit, if you like, and that's something that the role has certainly enabled me to do, and to reach that part of the community. Otherwise, never would have happened.
James, thank you for now. If I could ask you to unmute, and We'll bring you back in the panel session shortly, but thank you for your contribution this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks. And we move now to Sally Basker, Exeter Science Park. Good morning, Sally. How have you been?
Pretty good. We went into lockdown. My team went into lockdown a week before proper lockdown. So we've been, we were off from the 17th of March. We've got pretty good at that, but we're now back in the office preparing the building and the science park to be safe when people come back.
Let's come to that in a moment, because there's some very practical concerns as a large-scale operator that you're facing. I just wanted to take the slightly more macro point, which is that all sectors, of course, have been affected and nearly always negatively by the pandemic. But your world of technology and innovation perhaps is more robust than most.
I think so. Of our larger clients, most of them have done okay at this point. And of the ones in the Science Park Centre, the smaller clients, I think most of them are okay. There'll always be some problems, and people have found that their businesses aren't looking quite the way that they wanted them to. You know, we're still ourselves going from start-up to scale-up mode as a science park. We were lucky in that we'd sorted a few things beforehand, which meant that we've been secure and able to do what we need to do over this period. So that's been really important.
And you talk about going from startup to scale up and so on. Give us some context. I mean, how many businesses, perhaps how many people are sort of under your umbrella currently?
So when I joined, which was March 2017, there were fewer than 200 people on the park as a whole. We had one building. Today, we've got around about 500 people on the park. We've put up 3 buildings. We've designed and sold that design to a third party to put up another building, and we're currently constructing a further building. So we are expecting to be nearly 700 people in FY21.
It's you know, the truth is, and this is, I don't want to be bland about it, but this is an exceptional outcome, and you know, it's doing so much to help power the economy of Exeter, but also put Exeter on the map differently than it might otherwise have been.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Our mission is to help innovative STEM companies to deliver extraordinary growth.
But let's come down from the sort of innovation to the practical. How are you approaching housing these people on your sites as the lockdown ends? Presumably you can't get everyone back at the same time.
We've been working on this since April. We've had to deal with how do we get people to park closely together. And the simple thing you do is you get everybody to reverse into their car parking spaces. And that way, all the driver's doors are 2 meters apart. You know, it's you know, we've been working on how do we open or keep all the doors open. So we've installed electromagnetic door holds for all our fire doors connected to our fire alarm system. We've putting in automatic doors into some parts to prevent people from having to talk. We're moving our reception desk so that our reception team's safe. We're currently dealing with the kitchen, so our kitchen team's safe. We're moving meeting pods so that our co-working desks are safe. So that's been the first thing. We've put in routing systems. We have 50 centimeter carpet tiles around the building. Every 5th one of those is now colored pink because that's 2 meters. So we're trying to make it a demonstrably safe and pleasant place to work and socializing. And that's what we're working in.
On that 2 meters point, how do you then view the 1 meter plus announcement yesterday? Is that good news because it allows flexibility, or a bit painful because you just put in place these 2 meters?
I think at the moment, what it does is it's much more ambiguous than it has been, and we will take some guidance because, you know, the Health and Safety at Work Act still applies. And in an tenanted area, we have to also to look at the 1999 regulations. So we have to make all of that work. We'll take the guidance, we'll think about what it means, because at the moment we can only seat 6 people in our cafe under 2 meters instead of the old 30 odd. And maybe we can bring it up to 12 people there and 12 people in the front. But that's the way that we're doing. We're taking this every move we're doing. We change a lot, we change a little, and then we test a lot. And that's the way that we're doing. So we've got a new design for coming in for downstairs, so that it's going to feel pleasant. It's so easy to end up with, you know, sort of gazing across the tumbleweed, or thinking you're in the sort of the Russian gulag version of social distancing, whereas in fact we want to make it a pleasant place to be.
Yeah, I think that that softer point about reassurance, which is probably what is lurking there, is one of the challenges that every single business and organisation faces. Of course, I'm sure you'll be exact within the strictures of the guidelines and so on, but there is just that sense of being comfortable, which is going to be hard to communicate. But I guess over time, human beings are very adaptable. Are you optimistic in that respect? Yeah,
I think so. There's still a few crazies out there. I mean, we were walking on the top of something called High Will Hayes on Dartmoor on Saturday, which is the highest peak on Dartmoor. Sat there just about to put our rucksacks on to move off, and this young fellow turned up towards us and almost pushed past us. And you thought, come on, you know, this is social distancing world. You don't know whether we're asymptomatic or you're asymptomatic and infectious. Nobody knows, but it seems to be that we just have to. We need a more courteous society and prepared to give everybody space.
It would be pleasant were that the case, and we'll perhaps come on to some of the longer term societal points in a moment. But back from a business point of view or organisation point of view, of the new things that you're putting in place now, and I'm not really talking about the social distancing, are you likely to continue a different way of working on the other side when this great pause is over?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing is we will be taking back operations of the Science Park Centre. Part of that is massive amounts of work right now on producing a digital ESPL cloud model that will be out there. We'll have memberships. We will eventually expand those memberships. But yeah, this is part of the digital first and physical instances of the Science Park, both on the site and potentially as we go forward further afield. But it's that focus on the digital piece so we can reach out to people.
Has it has that thinking or practice been accelerated by lockdown? It's simply brought forward the thinking that was there already, or
it's probably brought forward by about 18 months.
As much as that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that alone perhaps suggests, as well as much else you've talked about that there are positives, and it's almost bizarre to be talking about it, but positives from these extraordinary times.
Yeah. You have to keep looking for the silver lining in the cloud, and there are plenty around.
Well, let's just take a completely open question to you. What have you learned from lockdown?
What have I learned? I've got a really good team. That's the first thing. They've taken on the challenge, and it's not been easy. We've learned that some of our systems and processes, or some of our remote control systems, have worked really well. Some of them are now slated for an upgrade because they haven't given us what we want. We've had to be pretty patient, I think, as everyone else has been. I think we've learned that whilst Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all these other things have been great in supporting us through this, that there is a real desire for people to see each other in 3 dimensions again and meet up. And there are some things you can do easier socially distanced when you see people than otherwise.
Sally, we've had one specific question for you from Alan Keane. What does ESPL stand for in the context
I'm so sorry. Yeah, Exeter Science Park Limited.
We're all creatures of acronyms. One of ours is ELA, which is the Exeter Living Awards, and you were a very, very erudite judge one year, and you've won previously.
Thank you. Yeah.
But for now, we'll sort of take you off, as it were, and bring in another former judge and winner of the Exeter Living Awards. That's Patrick Cunningham of Exeter Phoenix.
Oh,
and I think Patrick wins the best shirt of the day award. Are they Sharks?
The Sharks, my PPE, keep you protected.
Sharks as PPE. So we're starting with the metaphor already, and you're in the artistic world. I want to come to a quote which you may have seen, which I picked up on social media just this morning. The playwright Emily Garside, she tweeted saying, "If your theatre friends seem a bit oversensitive right now, it's because after a lifetime of our identities being tied up with our job and what we love, our world has disappeared. And nobody outside of the bubble seems to care because there's football and pubs now." Does that chime with you?
To a certain extent. I mean, we do football and pubs as well, but we do so many things. But yes, it's very difficult for the likes of us. We're very complex, and despite yesterday's news, we can't reopen anytime soon because of any social distancing, whether it's 1 metre or 2 metres. Just doesn't work for live performance, particularly a standing concert, because how on earth would you police that? It's just impossible. So it's very difficult, but for theatre as well, it's very difficult. If it's 2 metres, then you're looking at 10%. Even if it's 1 metre, you're looking at 25 or 30% capacity. It's just not viable. It's not viable economically, but it's also a very poor experience, I think, for the performers as well as the audience. Just a flat experience.
So, Patrick, talk us through your planning assumptions, and like all businesses, I'm sure they're being modified almost daily. But your planning assumptions right now of what the autumn might look like, and maybe into the beginning of 2021.
Well, I mean, obviously we can look that far ahead, but in a way we can't because things are so fluid. So we had the news yesterday, we're waiting, and something's just come through. Actually, I haven't had a chance to look at it. See the details of hospitality opening, because there's a lot of detail that didn't come out yesterday. So we have 6 or 7 different aspects to what we do. One of which is the cafe bar, very successful cafe bar, and very successful in not just in terms of popularity, but finance. So in terms of our viability, it is completely reliant in normal times on the cafe bar because of the money it generates. And of course that prospers because of the footfall, because of the events. So everything's connected. So we have the cinema as well. We have our studio spaces, we have the film and digital media resource, we have tenants. So we have let some of our tenants back into the basement. And we will be looking probably to do some outdoor activity on our cafe bar terrace. I'm pointing that way because that's where it is, the other side of this wall. So that's definitely possible over the summer. But in terms of what we're probably best known for, the auditorium events, the sort of big events, it's who knows when that will be. I'm not sure whether it'll even be this autumn. It could be in the year. But of course that could change quite quickly as the rate of infection goes down. If the treatment comes in, that could change quite quickly. But I mean, what we've been able to do, we're in a slightly better position than theatres, particularly Northcote Theatre, in that all our events, our live events, tend to be one-nighters. So we've been able to move en masse, en bloc, pretty much the whole April, May, June programme into the autumn and the new year. Of course, what's happening now is increasingly some of the autumn dates are also moving back, but they're much easier to move than week-long runs of theatre. We do have runs of theatre, but they're much shorter and they're much more versatile in that respect. So that's a bit easier.
And how accommodating, perhaps, have people who've bought tickets been? They've booked a show or an event or whatever it might be, and you're not able to run it. Are they hanging on in there? You're able to retain that?
Yeah. Well, because nearly everything is just being rescheduled or postponed. Very few events are actually being cancelled. Luckily, there's a lot of goodwill on the part of the industry to make the events happen, whether it's in the autumn or New Year. There's also a lot of goodwill from customers, the audience, ticket holders. I would say probably refunds are somewhere between probably 10 and 20%, but some people are donating the value of that and not wanting the money back. So there's a lot of goodwill all round. So that's very positive, yeah.
And talking of positivity and so on, what about any sponsors? Have you been able to keep them on board or introduce new ones perhaps?
Well, that's difficult because a lot of the sponsors are event related. So what we normally do in the summer, a big screen in the park in Northern Hay Gardens next door, that won't be possible. And we do have sponsors for that. So we're looking to see what we can do in terms of some other activity, pop-up activity, and hopefully our sponsors will stay with us.
I mean, the sector, or more particularly defined the theatre sector, has been amongst the worst hit in this pandemic. For those who perhaps less know, Southampton and Leicester have closed, major theatres. Plymouth just, I think this week, announced maybe 100 people on redundancy warning. Tell us how you've been with your team and how they have responded. First of all, what's the scale of the enterprise overall?
Okay, so we have 50 staff. A lot of those, probably half of those, casual and part-time. 90%, over 90% are furloughed. In fact, I'm the only person here today in work. Normally two of us. So a very small team, but everybody is in good spirits and supportive. We've managed to keep everybody. I'm obviously completely reliant on furloughing. So what happens at the end of October is obviously a big question mark. Like the Northcote, we are waiting the outcome of a bid to the Arts Council for emergency funding, which we'll hear about next week. So we've been able to pick up one or two sort of grants along the way. So we're only really surviving, A, because of furloughing, and B, because we do have some core grant funding, normal funding from the City Council and the Arts Council, but we rely on generated income for 84% of our income is generated. So ticket sales, bar sales, etc., etc. Tenants, we have 6 tenants. We have lots of different income streams. At the moment, apart from the grants, it's all naught. Ticket sales are flat, but we have surveyed the audiences. They are very keen to come back, particularly for something outdoors. But on the other hand, ticket sales, as I say, are flat. So there's the demand to come back, but there's virtually zero confidence in terms of when that might be. Is it going to be the autumn? Is it going to be New Year? And very few people are willing to put their money on it.
Have you? I've seen certainly in hospitality, and I think there's one example in the arts world of people launching buy forward schemes, where you'd encourage your customers to essentially buy the right to go to something at some later stage, but at least the cash is coming in. Is that something that...
Well, we do vouchers, do credit vouchers. You can buy vouchers. We also, obviously, we're soliciting donations. We're all sorts of fundraising activity. But not as detailed as that. But yeah, you can, and of course, if you buy a ticket for something in advance. I mean, we're selling tickets for events up until 18 months' time in autumn 2021. So there's plenty there for people to spend money on if they want to.
And tell us about, in current times, the Creative Hub, which has been such a clever feature of your offering, and so important for the wider Exeter art scene.
Yeah.
What have you been able to do? What might be happening next few months?
We've been doing what we can in terms of sharing opportunities, publicising other activity, also trying to give some of our freelancers, because a lot of people rely on us, a lot of tutors, a lot of freelancers, whether they teach. We have hundreds of classes and workshops every week. So lots of people rely on us. So we've been doing our best to try and promote what other people are doing, help them in terms of them generating some money from whatever they're doing. So some tutors have set up their own sort of Zoom workshops. So we're helping to promote people as much as possible. And as I say, share opportunities out there. But for us, it's we're a very small team, virtually no money. So it's more about survival, frankly, than doing a lot of activity, because there isn't the money there, and got resources for that. So.
You mentioned the word survival, at the risk of asking the existential question: will you survive?
Well, I say we're waiting on this bid to the Arts Council next month. I mean, furloughing is the big problem when that starts in October. And that's going to be very difficult, but we'll have to see. Hopefully, we'll have at least some activity up and running. I mean, as I say, we've got about 7 different areas of what we do. We've already started one with the tenants, so we've got them back in, and then therefore we're able to charge them rent. Because everything we do has a cost attached to it. So at the moment we're operating at sort of zero, bottom line budget. So anything we add in terms of activity and any cost has to have some income attached. So opening the cafe bar, hopefully that will give us some income. So we have to sort of work like that really. And as I say, the sort of the headline live events, particularly in the auditorium, the big ones, I think will be the last ones to come back. And whether that's the autumn, hopefully it is the autumn. And then that, I was going to say that'll be fine. Of course, it's not necessarily fine because we've got to build ourselves, even if we've got everything working and open, we've still got to build those income levels back up to where they were. Because it's one thing to have a resource available, there's another thing to actually get the money flowing through that, and obviously people coming back in. And public confidence, of course, is a massive thing, because we're definitely sensing that a good chunk of people are cautious. They're nervous about coming back in. I've been coming in to work every day since the last 3 months or so, and I've seen things sort of get busier and obviously build up. But I'm very aware that a lot of people that just won't come anywhere near the city centre. So it's difficult.
There's a specific question from Alan Keane. He says, maybe take this offline, but he wondered if there are any technical efficiencies you might want to make which would save time and money that he could be able to offer as a donation in terms of time.
Okay, I'm not sure quite what those technical efficiencies might be in what area, but
I'll suggest we hook you up and you have that conversation and see if something comes from it. In that vein, the Phoenix is obviously a charity. How can people on this call now and watching it on YouTube subsequently, how can they help you?
Well, they can donate. So on our homepage, top right-hand corner, there's a donate button. So people are donating. We're getting donations every week. So that's an obvious thing to do. People can buy tickets, of course. If they're slightly nervous about it, then maybe tickets for something this time next year or well into next year. So that should be quite a safe bet. As I say, these events, they might get moved. They're not going to get cancelled because there's a real willingness to see this through, make sure these events happen. The dates might move back.
Well, I think it's clear to everyone on the call today that there's an indomitable spirit there, and there's great ingenuity. If I could just add to the points you've made, I think that the importance of the Phoenix to the city, it's part of the living culture, the social glue, and now is, if possible, the time for people to come together to provide whatever support that they can in these times for you. So please come forward. We will promote the Phoenix again in our weekly newsletter on Friday, and let's hope that you get further collaboration. Thank you for now. Let's call back Sally and James to this wider group. And Sally, talking of collaboration, that's a key factor in your world. Can you give perhaps a couple of examples of how collaboration has been accelerated in current times?
Gosh, well, we're working with our ICT support teams and with the councils all the way through to help look at financing to help our offer improve. And I think if I can, I'd love to give a shout out to the council folk in all of them who I know have been working incredibly hard during this period, getting money out, doing all sorts of things. And I know James has been working behind the scene, but they're another group of people that really don't get the shout out for the work that they've done. And I think that's really important.
And that's really generous and good of you to say that. I think there's probably many examples of other collaboration, and who knows, maybe amongst our panelists today. I wanted to come on to a more fundamental point. Patrick's just briefly wandered away. Perhaps he's got a delivery or something. A more fundamental point about mindset, that optimism is one of the drivers for all of us. That there's a phrase that pessimism is an alibi for inertia. whereas optimists are people who, because they believe, they will take action. Do you buy that?
Yeah, absolutely. We had James and his colleague Josh doing a really good presentation for us on Monday about the growth mindset. And I think so much of it is, it's not about the tangible stuff, but it is, so much of it is mental. And it's where coaching can really help, just to get people into a position where they can look to the future and think, right, there is an opportunity and it's achievable, and I think I could get there. And I think as you can start moving forward, that is a really important side. And I think, the trick for anybody who's leading an organization, it isn't about, can we keep the day job running? Because, yeah, we can do that. It's about, can we look to the future and inspire hope for our team and for our colleagues and everything else. And I think that's what we have to find, is to put ourselves into that position. And as I said earlier, when we were talking pre-meet, I hope Patrick and I can have a chat at some point, because I think there may be some interesting things we could do.
I'm sure that'd be very welcome. It's difficult for any business leader, organization leader, who part of the role is to be looking out from the front of the ship at the distant horizon, when you've no idea what that distant horizon is. Can I ask you how you've each modified your managerial approach or your professional approach to how you operate? Perhaps Patrick.
Oh, good question. It's been mostly me here, so I'm managing myself.
How have you been?
I think I've been all right. Probably going slightly mad. Lots of shirts like this. It was, a small team of 3 or 4 of us. I mean, on Mondays there are 3 of us here. Otherwise, it's 2 of us. To be honest, it's been quite cosy. It's been very, very sort of rigid and monotonous in a way, and very structured and disciplined in terms of what needs to be done and the sort of timetable. And obviously not. Normally, this is a very busy place. Lots of footfall, lots of people coming in, lots of people asking questions, lots of people ringing up, coming to the office, etc., etc. Of course, we've had none of that. So it's a completely different way of working. I'm just not used to it really, but it does mean I can control this stuff. And it's still a very full day, it's still a busy day. I mean, I'm always working quite long hours, but it's been much more focused and quite tiring actually. Perhaps more tiring than I might have realised.
That latter point is a common experience that we found in these discussions and talking with other clients, that those who are working, actually, it is much, much more tiring. You don't have the sort of the slight social breaks in an office you might otherwise have and so on. And those on furlough just think, oh, come on, it's not that difficult. It's a few emails and some webinars or whatever. James, how about your personal style or your professional style? How has that modified in recent times?
Yeah, I'll pick up on what Patrick says. You do in this time, you do bizarrely feel more tired. For me, it's certainly from the start of the crisis right through to now, it's been mentally and emotionally draining. You're pouring out yourself to listen to other people. And you do, whether you realize it or not, you do take on, you internalize those feelings, of empathy towards other people. I remember coming off the phone from various customers when it first kicked off, and then since, those genuine distress conversations, so you do feel like you are on the front line. We've had a feel of the taste of being in the trenches, and you mentioned it earlier, Greg, I'm not doing my normal role. I miss, Sally's mentioned about that people contact. I think I've really missed just seeing people, other humans. I don't think you realize, do you, how much that is an important part in the business world of how we all communicate. And there's only so much of Zoom phone calls that you can do, and texting and everything like that, where you miss that human contact. I found that tough, but adjusting to that for me is about trying to take regular breaks, trying to, mix up the work that we do. I'm very lucky to have great leaders around me that have enabled us to really focus on our well-being and stuff like that, you know, and be really, I think being switched on to that for your team is really important. Just picking up the phone, saying, "How you doing, mate? How you feeling?" You know, those kind of things have made a massive difference. And yeah, huge.
Well, in a very sort of, excuse me, in a very profound way, I suspect we've all had to, whatever the expression might be, dig deep and to understand our own motivations, psychologies, and ability just to navigate, just to get through, to have the pressure valves and so on. But I want to come forward to, at some point, and I have no idea when, none of us know, when it's something approaching familiar and similar to what it was previously. Of what is happening now and you're thinking now, you think will endure on the other side? What will be changed? Maybe Sally first.
We will be, I think, a much probably digital first and physical second, which for Science Park might be quite an unusual approach, but I think the strength and digital bit will be really important. We've done an awful lot in advance on automation, and we'll keep pressing that. And we'll look to be working in ways to bring our clients here together in order to deliver, let's say, big company facilities for small companies. And that's what our objective is here. We want them to grow. So that's what we'll be doing here. Some of it's different. I think in terms of our construction program, that's clearly moved to the right. And we'll wait to see how the world changes. But I think the offices that we have are reasonably small, and I think that will work going forward.
Patrick, what about for you? What you're doing now, or thinking now, perhaps about your role and why you do what you do? What might change going forwards?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, we get involved with so many different things. We've always been very flexible, so I think I would have hope, and I think we will be in a position to be able to move and navigate around. I'm not saying necessarily huge changes, but as I say, for us, there's quite a long way to go. We've got to navigate our way through a lot of choppy waters coming up. So it's probably a little bit early for me to say how we might come out of this. I suspect we will be doing more of some things and less of others. But because we've got such a wide and diverse range of activity, it gives us options really to increase or reduce or what have you.
And James, how either will you change or be changed by this experience, or NatWest change the way it communicates, engages, even its offering to some extent?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on what Sally said about digital first. I just think about some of the things that we're doing as an organisation certainly across the business piece, and that's how we reach out to our customers digitally. There's NatWest Business Builder program, which you can just Google, access online. You don't have to be a customer. You can just be any size, shape or form of an SME right across the country. And what that provides is a set of digital modules for businesses to work through, whichever stage they're at. How do they respond to the crisis? How do they grow through the crisis? How do they attract new customers? It's all free. There's no cost to this. It provides, again, an online community. So you could be connecting with an entrepreneur in completely different parts of the country doing the same thing as you. So it gives you that online community and that digital connection. And also there's some really great wraparound events on there too. I think those kind of things for us continue to show how we innovate and we respond to helping people come through this and out the other end. That's really great. And the other thing, there's some great tools that we're providing. There's something called Mentor Live, which is a health and safety and employment law tool that we've got out there as well. I've just had me do a radio advert about it as well. So you might hear my dulcet tones on whichever radio channel you listen to.
We'll look out for that one, James, I'm sure.
But those are two key areas at the moment that where we're supporting people, and the basic things like there's NatWest Till, TYL, a startup that was almost launched within our own organization to help customers take digital payments. So if you want to take, you know, in a cashless world now and less people want to even touch cash, how as a business do I respond to enabling my customers to transact with me in a really easy way where, you know, I can just use my card? You know, a lot of us do that without thinking, but a lot of businesses, a lot of SMEs wouldn't have necessarily thought about how they respond to that, and in a way that's affordable for them as well. So there's those kind of areas, you know, that are really important.
Good. Let's come to your view of Exeter as a whole, that clearly the pandemic is affecting all sectors differently, but all are being affected. How robust do you think Exeter's overall business culture is in terms of its broad recovery come in, well, I don't know, some point in 2021? What's your sense of vitality of Exeter's business community?
I can answer from the point of view from the networking kind of side of things. You know, there's a really pre-COVID robust networking culture in Exeter, again, which is why we're talking. I can just think of some of the groups that I'm part of on WhatsApp. I've not really had a chance to have massive engagement because of my role, but you know, there's people like John Harvey, Vic Williams, you know, doing massive work behind the scenes on building networks of people, helping people to connect. So I think that's still there and alive. I've had several Zoom calls with different people across the business world. There's that communication thing around Exeter that is so strong. You know, that connects us. It's one of the reasons, you know, I'm even talking to you today, has been able to be part of that community that's, you know, given that platform. And
but do you think Exeter is inherently any better or worse placed than other broadly similar cities? Is there something which is different about it, which makes it either more challenging or you could be more optimistic about it?
For me, it's the sense of genuinely wanting to support each other. You know, you look at the lockdown show that the Chamber were running, and a lot of the interaction through there, you know, there's that real sense, I don't bang on about it too much, but there's a sense of community in Exeter that I think is something that I think we shouldn't underestimate, that I'm seeing just those small acts of kindness behind the scenes, where people are communicating with each other and talking to each other and thinking, how can I support you? How can I help you get your startup up? I've seen startups start in lockdown where people have lost their jobs and they've freelanced out, and the level of support that people have given to them has been truly inspirational to watch and to see unfold. You know, and that level of not people wanting to hold on to their own clients, but wanting to share experience. And Sally's mentioned it a moment ago about how you might want to collaborate with Patrick. You know, that it just comes out of the Exeter community, that collaboration.
Patrick and Sally, do you buy this point that the strength of the community, desire to collaborate, will be one of the reasons why Exeter perhaps will be able to come through in a better place than it might have been otherwise? Yeah,
I think there is a strong sense of community. I should say I wear another hat. I'm the chair of Exeter Business Improvement District. And as I say, I've been coming in every day, and it's sad to see places setting up for good. You know, there are definitely some gaps now, the city centres, and they're visible gaps, but there is a resilience, definitely. And the other thing about Exeter is only 15% of jobs are furloughed in Exeter. National average is 24%.
Wow.
So it does show, and that's obviously largely because a lot of public sector jobs in Exeter, but that does show that we're less reliant as a city on furloughing, which I think it's got to be a good thing in terms of that resilience. And I agree with James, there's been a lot of acts of kindness. There's the big thing I would take out of this is the sort of sense of community, definitely. And we, particularly for us, we're very much involved in this area, the Gandhi Street area. We have a shop actually in Gandhi Street called Maker Mart, which we reopened last week. And there's a real sense of, much more of a sense of community in our area, in our local area, than perhaps there ever was before. And that's really heartening.
And then from a yet broader point of view, from a societal point, do you think Britain is ready to be a decent collectivist post-lockdown as it has been in these times? What prospect for a cultural revolution? Do you buy that at all as an idea? Sally, maybe.
I just am so disappointed with some of the rhetoric around trans people at the moment, which has been quite appalling. I'm disappointed with some of the rhetoric around the Black Lives Matter. So the Burnley thing that happened the other day, I think, is appalling. Yeah. And if we're to move forward, we have to accept each other's differences. Yeah. And also accept that it's the diversity that makes us great. If we become an inward-looking, rather intolerant society, we will have problems. Now, I think Exeter is much bigger than that, and I think and the region is much bigger than that. We've got a history of tolerance for new ideas that goes right back to the Pilgrims and further, and that's really important. It's part of our DNA down here, but that is really important.
There's a great phrase, isn't there? Unity is the acceptance of diversity, and never more before have we, perhaps at a time where we're going to emerge from a crisis and all be trying new ways of working and ways of being entrepreneurial, will it be more important to have that question: how do I respond to LBGT? How do I respond to the BAME community? How do I have an open mind to that? How do I take my staff and my team with me? So that just becomes like a child's view. Well, I don't see colour there. You're a person. How can I be kind to you? Kindness for me and empathy. I bang on about that a lot at the moment. But I think never before has it been more important to wrap around all of these things that Sally's just mentioned in kindness and empathy, because how would I feel if I was in your shoes, to me, is the most important question we should ask. Right, like when you cut a piece of rock in half, the writing goes all the way through the middle. That should be something that goes all the way through everything that we do, kindness and empathy.
You've made a very powerful case, particularly on that empathy point. I'd just like to ask Patrick one last question in this area. Do you think there is a prospect of us emerging as better people from this than we would have done otherwise?
I would certainly hope so. And obviously, of the Black Lives Matter campaign has coincided, and I think together, hopefully, we are going to come out of this as more considerate people and with a greater sense of community and helping and sharing and listening to each other. I've certainly experienced a lot of that, and hopefully that will continue. I think lots of other things will come out. I think we're moving very quickly to a cashless economy. That's one of the things, and obviously less travel, more Zoom meetings, less long distance travel. I mean, I think there are a number of quite key things that are going to come out of it.
Okay, I think we're nearly done here. I just want to ask one last question to you with the observation first. It's been really touching. I think we've all been buoyed up by this to see how the people and businesses of Exeter are creating clever ways of supporting and helping where they can. We've been trying to share those on social media using the hashtag Exeter Together, that sense of promoting the good that people do. I wondered, James or Patrick, have you got an example of the good that people have been doing beyond your own business areas and so on in these times?
I've been getting a lot of messages over the time on WhatsApp. There's this lovely little button you can press to record a voice message. I don't know if you've used it. Rather than type something, you can hold the little microphone down and record a voice message. And I've had a few, and I'm trying to respond in that way to people now, where somebody would just leave you a little message, say, "Hi Greg, no need to respond to this, but just let you know I'm thinking about you. Hope you're well at this time. Just give me a shout if you need anything. Just let you know I'm thinking about you." And those things have been very touching, right from across people in the business world that I've received to my phone. So I think that's a great way of showing that bit of connection. It makes all the difference to your day. It will often lift you, perhaps if you're not feeling quite yourself.
That's a very thoughtful and practical point. I hadn't heard that, and I fear that for various Media Clash people and clients and friends, you may be getting the occasional little message from me as well. Thank you, James. And Patrick, roundabouts.
Well, similarly, I mean, I've had lots of nice messages from people who might not have heard from for a long time, just saying, how are you, thinking of you, that sort of thing, which is lovely. It's great. I don't necessarily have time to respond to all of them, but I will get round to them. But that's really great that people are thinking about us, and I'm not just in this bunker alone. There are other people out there who who are caring, which is great.
Really good. Sally just had to pop away, but I'd like on your behalf to thank all of our panellists today. So Sally Basker, Exeter Science Park, Patrick Cunningham of Exeter Phoenix, and James Court of NatWest. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for your time today. Please check our forthcoming Exeter Living business surgeries. Be running those as mentioned on employment and HR, financial planning, commercial property, and some others. And good luck to all of you navigating these unimagined times, but plotting your times to come. Because it's quite clear there's the reawakening is happening, the planning, the thinking, the expectation of what will come. And let's all of us hold to the belief that enduring good can come from this, as we've heard today. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been the Exeter Living Business Club. Thank you. Exeter together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.